This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Right, hello guys, welcome to this special edition, a video/audio edition of the Dreamcast DreamVod. It's been so long since I've been on one, I wasn't even sure what it was called anymore. Today we are going to be talking about that Sega announcement that is due to come up next week. I believe it's Thursday, it's the 4th. Days don't really seem to matter anymore because they're all the same, because we're still living in our kind of lockdown lives. I'm joined today by Mike, who on my screen is just to the left of me. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Glorious Dreamcast background behind him there. Then we've got Mark, who's now in my bottom left. Hello, Mark.
Hey guys, how's it going? You all right?
Got his Maz Gaming set up there. And then we've got Lewis, who's directly beneath me on my screen. Hopefully this is the way you can see it. Otherwise, that's not going to make any sense. How are you, Lewis?
I'm not too bad. We're on like University Challenge or something.
Yeah, something like that. Although they don't actually sit. They sit side by side. It's the camera.
Yeah.
I've already descended into pointless nonsense.
Crushed my world.
Well, as a youngster, I used to think, why don't they just throw stuff down at the people below them? But they can't. They'd have to throw it to the side.
This is much more Brady Bunch, I think.
Yeah, we are. Much more Brady Bunch. There we are. They're referenced that our audience will probably understand. Right, guys. So the announcement that we were talking about then, here is a quick visual snip for those of you who are watching this on YouTube. This is from the games journalist there, whose name I'm not going to pronounce or try to pronounce. Is anyone willing to give it a go?
Kenji Nishikawa.
Gonna take it. I was hoping Martin was going to be here just for that reason. I considered trying to get him to record something to send in. The announcement that's came out, the kind of crux of it that we've got there. Last year, Wired got the exclusive story on PlayStation 5, right? Other media didn't. It's that level of scoop. So he's talking about an announcement that's coming up that the Sega section of the internet is in a furor about, that's apparently coming up this week. So I forget where this guy is actually from. Mike, you told me you did some research on him, and he's a legit.
Yeah, I believe he's a Famitsu journalist, isn't he?
Right. So obviously a well-respected, or at least a well-known situation. Now, there's obviously, this is his story that he's breaking, so there could be an element of clickbait to it, but looking at it, what were people's first kind of reactions or thoughts on this?
My first thought was, oh my god, everyone's going to be streaming Dreamcast 2 immediately. That was my first thought. Yeah, I've gone full circle on this. At first, I thought it's probably going to be exaggerated, and then when it's kind of built up a little bit more steam, it's like, if he has exaggerated it too much, I mean, it's just going to look ridiculous now, because I mean, he has built it up as if PS5 level of an announcement. So I am now quietly kind of optimistic that it actually might be something quite cool. Obviously, what it is, I've no idea, but it's I'm hoping it's something actually worth the that level of hype. Fingers crossed.
Brilliant. Right, we're gonna move on then to what the meat of the episode is. So the rumors, then we're gonna have a look at some of the rumors, and we're gonna talk about our thoughts on them. So the first one, it's the Sega Dreamcast 2, yo.
It's not.
It's not. I've even prepared some visual gags. I am the fanboy. This is what it is, surely, Mike.
Yeah, no. I think ultimately we've got to remember that I think in the actual teaser that the guy did, I think he did actually mention it wasn't Dreamcast 2, which sort of puts pay to that before we get that far.
He would say that though, wouldn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He would. Yeah, true. Classic ruse. But I mean, again, I go back to what I said in the podcast before. Why would Sega name a console Dreamcast 2? It makes no sense. If we're looking at a Sega console, then possibly. But I think a Dreamcast 2 makes no sense. I think us as Dreamcast fans, we have a slightly rose-tinted view of Dreamcast. We want it to be a sequel to Dreamcast, but actually, Sega's much more known for its arcade machines. So it doesn't make any sense. It never has made any sense to have a Dreamcast 2, to me.
Fair. Probably a fair point. Now that I've got my fanboy hat off, I'm probably more likely to believe that. Lewis, you do more of the kind of social media handling for the many Dreamcast Junkyard hats, many Dreamcast accounts, even many hats. I'm mixing up my metaphors here. What have you seen around, or what are your views on what this could be, or what that type of announcement may mean?
I think in regards to what people think this is, I'm seeing a lot of other company involved. So, it's like basically Sony or Microsoft. I'm seeing a lot of, is Microsoft buying Sega? Is Sony buying Sega? Is Sega rustling up some kind of exclusivity deal with either one? Basically, the majority of what I'm seeing is Sega with Microsoft or Sony, whether it be a new thing on a new console or something,
Right.
on a current gen.
That's a brilliant segue, because we're going to then jump over. So, rumor 2, Xbox are buying Sega. Mike, it's definitely this, isn't it?
Yes.
So, right, excellent. Got the right hat for this. So, you're telling me, Mike, 100% Xbox are buying Sega?
I mean, I don't personally believe it, but I think it's the most likely rumor of the lot. Yeah, I think why not? I think I think it makes sense. I think a lot of people have said that. Although I think they wrongly said that it's a great way of Microsoft getting into the Japanese market, which makes no sense because, of course, Sega aren't this big, great name in Japan, or quite as big as people maybe assume they are. But I think it's the most likely of any of the rumors I've heard so far.
So on that, there has been the announcement today that a few people are saying that maybe Sega are going to partner with or produce the box of the Xbox One Series X.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why that could be a good idea, even if it's not massively likely, is for the reason of you saw me there. As I sit in this room with my Xbox fanboy hat and all my Halo gear up on the shelf and my original Xbox, and I've got an Xbox One X, Xbox 360. I have no idea what that new console is called. Their naming convention has absolutely gone to toss, hasn't it? So if they were just pushing that out in Japan as Sega Xbox, is it going to muddy any more of that kind of brand waters that they've got? I don't think so. Now, Mark, I'm interested in your view on this, and we're going to go to Lewis after. Lewis, you're not a fan of that of Sega and Xbox tying together, are you? Is that right?
No, I have much love for Xbox, but I don't know. I always associated the Xbox with, maybe I'm just generalizing here. I always associated Xbox with being the kind of game console that maybe a more, and I don't mean this in an offensive way, a more casual gamer would get. So, because it has less of those kind of weird niche titles on it. I mean, maybe there's one that you can throw me that they do have on there that I'm missing, but I don't know. Like I don't know if and I know obviously you guys all have Xbox Ones. I mean, I did have an Xbox One, and I don't know if so you would appreciate the Sega stuff, but I don't know about the majority of sort of modern gamers on Xbox. Would they appreciate some Sega titles that we've all been hoping for? I don't know.
So Phantasy Star Online 2 is on there, but I get your point. That kind of ties into why I'm a bit skeptical of this, because, and I was saying to you guys before we recorded in our chat client, I think the Japanese market is a bit kind of overrated in terms of how much do Microsoft really care about it. In terms of sales, console sales, the Switch, from what I could see, someone might be able to tell me that this was wrong, but it looks like the Switch has already overtaken the PS4. And then Martin, who isn't on today, he said that from his experiences of living in Japan and having friends in Japan, it's still much more of a handheld market. So, like Lewis was saying, the vast majority of people with modern consoles play FIFA, Madden, Call of Duty, Fortnite, Apex Legends. I don't know how much your kind of average Western gamer cares about a more kind of diverse range. Obviously, there's a huge amount of niche genres and audiences that do, but they aren't the people. Phantasy Star Online 2 is never going to make Sega the amount of money that 2K have made from the basketball FIFA Ultimate Team mode, or whatever any of those modes are actually called. So yeah, I do get your point on that.
Can I jump in, Kev?
Go for it.
I just want to say, actually, like the way I angled what I just said sounded like I was like intensely disliking of Microsoft,
and that's the bit we're going to snip out and put online.
Out of context, yeah. No, it's this. It'd be the same for any, the guy down the street with the PlayStation who plays FIFA. Like, it's like you say, Sega isn't gonna. A lot of these titles that we all really want, they're not going to make the money for Sega, like you said. But obviously with the PlayStation, you've got the Japanese audience who may they appreciate Sega a little bit more than the typical Western gamer. I don't know. Yeah.
Mark, if Xbox are buying Sega, what do you think they want to do with them?
I mean, because it is the fact. I know that traditionally Japanese people do tend to buy Japanese products. It's like they're quite like home birds with that stuff, and that's why I think a lot of American companies, unless it's someone like Apple, where they are providing a product that they didn't really have any competition when it broke, so there wasn't a Japanese equivalent. So certainly from what I've been told, Japanese people tend to stick with the Japanese products, if there is one available. So I can kind of see why there may be a want from Microsoft to rebrand it under Sega, but I just think it's just too late. It's not like anyone in Japan doesn't know that that's already a Microsoft product. So just slapping a Sega sticker on the front of it isn't going to change that perception. And I just think I don't really know what anyone's really going to get out of it at this point. I think it's potentially gone too far. Because I know there was the initial talk of a partnership between Sega and Microsoft a long time ago when the Xbox first came out and things like that. I mean, that then might have been the time where something like this would work gangbusters, and it really would have done really well. I think we're just like you say, the kind of games that Sega would bring to the party, even if they went first party or something like that. I mean, it's probably not the level of games that Microsoft wants to be out there. Again, it's never going to be up there with a Halo. It's never going to be up there with a Gears of War. It's never going to be up there with any of their titles. It is relatively small scale, so I'm not really sure what anyone would really get out of it, unfortunately.
Does anyone here who does have an Xbox have Games Pass?
Yeah.
With and there's Mike, obviously got kind of like PC expert in a sense in terms of historically. Anyway, the thing that I think that's been missed, I could see them wanting Sega for their PC titles, and by that I mean stuff like Company of Heroes, Football Manager. I'm missing. They've got another huge
Total War.
Total War.
Yeah.
I could see them wanting them for those kind of Creative Assembly IPs. Because if you imagine if they were on Game Pass, that would be a huge draw for a huge amount of customers, of audience, potentially to move to that. Maybe even move away from Steam, which is if you go on. I was on there at Christmas, so maybe not too recently. But Company of Heroes, I couldn't believe how popular that title is. Massive. Yeah, it's like staggering the amount of people who still play that, still have mod supports for it, tournaments. Free to play weekends and stuff like that. I could see them with how they're looking to diversify the material that they're getting. I could maybe see them going for that, but then it's how much would you have to pay for Sega, and would it be worth it for those titles just to be in their subscription service?
I think it's a matter of scale as well, isn't it? I mean, yeah, they are popular games, but I mean, are they? The Last of Us, Uncharted, Gears of War, Halo level, and they're really not. I don't think if we're going on what the journalist said in terms of it being a very, very high level, what did he say? Rile the industry up, I think he said.
Yeah.
I can't see how Microsoft buying Sega in any way is that big a deal. I don't think the name's we love the name. We're Sega fans, but I don't think the name is as important as maybe it once was.
Okay, right. We're going to move on then to one of the other rumours. Sega are doing a streaming service. For our visual listeners, I don't have a hat for this. I'm going to admit it. I didn't know what it would be. Maybe a director's hat. I don't know. Does anyone here have Apple Arcade? Is it that Choo Choo Rocket was on?
I've played it. I don't own it myself, but I played it at a mate's house.
So again, maybe one I could see being possibly more likely, that's been less talked about, would be if they were to partner with Apple or Amazon or one of the giants who do want that kind of Japanese entry in, and they're going to do a version of Stadia, however you're pronouncing that. Now, the problem with that would be that it looks like Stadia I don't know what we're calling that. Looks like it's been a bit of a failure. So why would you then want to try and launch it in a country where one of the things that people say is they're not into kind of traditional online games? But so would they therefore support streaming stuff? If it came with a load of arcade titles, historical titles, especially with the support that like Saturn, Dreamcast has previously had, could maybe see that. So it's a bit of a stretch. But what's everyone else's thoughts on this?
I know Sega did have a bit of a partnership with Amazon because I was approached to do a video about it from some Amazon PR person. This is a couple of years ago, where they was going to start putting some Sega games onto arcade sticks. Amazon,
right.
Sorry, Amazon Fire Sticks it was.
But again, it was on there now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like, so that was just the very, very nub of that happening, and I know that was part of it. But again, it's something that's, it's kind of cool and it'd be interesting, but I don't think you could do that for the more complicated games. Certainly from what I saw, I think it was, the more basic kind of low level ones. I'm not sure how it all works really, because it was just a few emails that I got and then not much after that. But again, I'm not sure whether or not that would fall into this breaking of the industry thing. I think it's either the guys overhyped it so much that nothing seems feasible enough to match that statement, or it's something much less, and actually we actually might be on the ball here. I'm really not sure. I can't call it.
I will genuinely like have a belly laugh if it's like the original Peter Molyneux and Fable, and they've promised so much, and then the outcome is you can now play Sonic on on CFAX and or whatever their equivalent of modern day teletext is. If it is something like that, it would be very, very in stride. would be how I'd say.
This is literally just going to be the Mega Drive Mini, but the like the Mega Drive 2 version, like the smaller one with the red buttons. That's all it's going to be after all this.
I would like that.
Yeah, I would as well.
So possibly ruling out Netflix or a streaming service.
Difficult to say. What do you think?
I think it'd be disappointing if it was. I don't think it would be. It depends, isn't it? I mean, I've seen someone on Twitter earlier on, I noticed, that said that every Sega game was going to be, or they thought every Sega game would be on this streaming service. I mean, there's a deep misunderstanding of how licenses work, I think, at play here. A lot of games can't be, there's a reason why Sega haven't re-released some games. It's not because of the fact they just don't want to make money. They're a company. There's always going to be reasons, and I think maybe that's a little bit hopeful. But I think some kind of service where they provide old games through whatever medium, whether it's through their own proprietary hardware, maybe, you don't know. I don't know. I just think it's, again, going back, and I know Mark has already said this, but I can't see how that's earth-shattering. And so either that guy's hyped it up to a level where he's going to just get absolutely pillared in the press, or he's there's something bigger than that. I can't see this as being that big.
Yeah, especially we've already seen issues with licensing for stuff like Crazy Taxi, Afterburner, and the Outrun series, who've all kind of lost the licenses for either the songs or like the vehicles. A plane is a vehicle, isn't it? Yeah, I'm gonna go with it. I was right. Yeah. Should have trusted myself. They've lost the licenses to use the real models. So very similar again. Turtles with Konami, the arcade game, have lost the license. Yeah. So that's why we've already seen some stuff.
It's like Outrun, isn't it? Outrun, a great example in Sega's past. So, how many times they changed the car?
Yeah. So then, rumor number 4. I do have a hat for this. This is my hipster handheld hat. It's the only thing I could find in the house. It was either this or my daughter's straw hat, which is probably more hipster, but did not fit me very well. It's definitely the Game Gear 2, isn't it, Mike?
Yes, Kev. I agree with everything. No. I mean, I can't see. Again, I don't think it'd be called Game Gear 2. I don't think Game Gear is particularly gone down in legend as being the most amazing console in the world. I think a handheld Sega device which I think is what we're talking about, is possible. But again, if it is, it's going to be some cheap licensed Chinese piece of hardware, surely. I mean, I can't see Sega going into the market. I know the Switch is really popular, and Switch has sort of confounded many people's expectations of what it's going to be like. But I mean, is there enough room in the market for another one? I don't think so.
Is it industry shaking either?
It is if it's got a TV tuner like that.
Yeah, I mean, technically, because there is no real other handheld hardware out there at the moment. I mean, I suppose it technically would be, it would shake up the industry. But the one thing that people forget is that Sega don't have an R&D department anymore for hardware. It doesn't exist. There isn't 100 guys sat in a lab somewhere, doing kind of creating mock-ups and doing prototypes. It doesn't. There isn't any. So, best case scenario, this is again something that Sega have designed in collaboration with another company, and then put their sticker on it because they don't have the ability to do it.
I think the only thing is, and it's something I've thought about slightly in the past few weeks, is the fact that Sega are known for the arcade side of it. I mean, if they've got some kind of idea in their heads where they sort of bring in handheld play and an old arcade style setting, if they somehow manage to sort of do that, sort of taking a tablet to an arcade, as it were. I think Sega still have arcades in Japan. I might be wrong in that. But I think they still have.
Yeah.
Some kind of thing where they can actually sort of link the two together. I think within the games journalism, that would be classed as earth-shattering. But I don't think for the wider populace would be. But that kind of thing where they sort of combine something really in sort of a new style of playing, a little bit like Switch has done. Where they sort of have that handheld and docked mode. That's a possibility. But again, I think we've got to understand that this is not Sega of old. It's not Sega who have, as Mark said, an R&D department. They've not got that. So I think more likely than them being bought out by Sony or being bought out by Microsoft is a possibility they could be in some kind of partnership with a Chinese company, and maybe they actually are going to try and do it that way. I think that's something that hasn't been discussed much. The Chinese companies want to get into that sector of the industry. Maybe they've partnered with Sega as a brand name and are doing something that way. Possible.
Do you know what? I've actually come around to this idea during the last 2 minutes. I had no
because it's a great idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had like zero positive notions of a Sega handheld. You know what? Why not? Let's do it, guys. Why not? That's I'm on board with that.
The Sega Hawaii handheld. That's my
sold.
Especially if it's shaped like a fishing controller.
Oh god, yeah.
So.
That's actually like the mock-up here. Like
there we go.
This is the official Sega Hawaii control. Yeah, there you go. I
did say to someone, whilst it wouldn't be groundbreaking, if they were saying, do you know what? There's a version of the Switch coming out that's Sega coloured. That is it. It doesn't have Sega on it. Doesn't have anything other than the dock is blue and the controllers are blue and it plays the Sega chime when you start it up. I would. The amount of people who are scalping those Animal Crossing Switches, and I'm like, why would you pay £700 for that? If that was £700, I'd just be emptying my wallet into the computer in a hope that those buttons were going to be hit, and one of them was going to turn up at my house. I'd be all over that.
So yeah,
but it's not industry shaking. It would make them a lot of money from the 4 people here potentially.
Yes.
Right.
Like I say, out of everything that we've suggested so far, that would be the biggest shake-up of the industry just because there is no handheld competition. So actually kind of maybe fits a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe.
Right, we're gonna move on to rumour 5. So I put here Sega going steady. So they're going to be aligned to one specific first party. So Sony and Sega. Is it happening, Mike? For audio viewers, I'm locking my fingers together to show relationship.
No.
Oh.
Because again, the PC side of it, I think they wouldn't want to limit themselves. Of course, if they're owned by Sony, or if they're first party owned for Sony, then that causes trouble with their PC side of it in terms of Microsoft, in terms of the Xbox side on the PC. It's not Xbox on PC, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That seems unlikely. I don't know what their actual percentage of profits come from their PC side, but I imagine it's quite a large amount. And so I think it would be unlikely that they would go for Sony. Microsoft, possible. But again, they would have to have a pretty hefty deal to be able to not go for the PS4.
I'm not good enough with the numbers to know this, but if I think about Sega titles that are specifically PlayStation, I'd think about Yakuza, which have come out on Xbox, Shenmue 3, obviously, and then is it Valkyria Chronicles? I'm never sure how that's pronounced.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Shenmue 3 is not Sega.
Say that again, sorry, Mike.
Shenmue 3 is not Sega.
Yeah, of course.
You've also got Atlas as well, who they own.
Oh yeah.
So that again, much more of the kind of niche. Well, niche is probably too harsh a term, but that kind of subsector of that isn't mainstream. Is that a fair way to pronounce it, Lewis? Yeah. So Atlas, obviously, good sales numbers, but don't make games that, like, to use him as an example, my brother would ever have heard of, because he's just a busy gamer who plays the more mainstream stuff that you can get in Tesco's, which is the kind of a better metaphor for it, maybe. So we don't think they're going first party.
I think, because just like you said, they had so many PlayStation exclusives, but the fact that some of them are now on Xbox would say that they're probably not going to go with Sony. Otherwise, it'd be a weird time to suddenly start throwing Yakuza games on Xbox and then immediately go 6 months later, oh, by the way, we are now exclusive with Sony. But again, like you say, I mean, none of them really fit the bill. I can't imagine why they would go exclusive. I mean, they make too much money across the board, really.
I think it's more likely the studio who make Yakuza would go to Microsoft on their own rather than actually the entire Sega.
Yeah, I mean, that's much more likely. Yeah,
that could be the news. That'd be disappointing.
There you go. Mike's just cracked it. We can end the podcast there, doesn't it?
Lewis, you're a Persona fan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is anyone else here a Persona fan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Mark is. I like them, but I've just never even. There we go. Have you got a hat, Lewis?
I do not have a hat.
Oh, amateur. Would you consider, if the news was that those Persona games are only going to be on PlayStation 5, would you consider that groundbreaking to the Japanese market?
No, because all of the Persona games have been PlayStation exclusive, I think.
Right. There's some on the Switch is what I was thinking of.
Oh, yeah, Shin Megami Tensei is not Persona exclusive. We're getting into a bit of a rabbit hole here with like the whole meta series and all this stuff. So
this is why you're here. It's like when on the news, when there's something very niche and science related, they always kick to an expert who just then disresputes what the host just said. So playing the role perfectly, despite your lack of hat. So not a problem. So here then, rumors number 6 or the number 6 are ones that we're going to make up. Now, I've obviously done mine. The Game Gear 2. Does anyone have anything that hasn't been covered that you think is going to shake the industry up or be groundbreaking? What is it? Or what would you like it to be?
The Sega SG-2000. We have waited too long. Come on, guys. It's been too long, hasn't it?
That is niche.
Yeah, that is niche. Like even that or Spirit of Speed 1938, which I think again is a large part of why we're all here.
Getting the title.
I think for me, I think I've touched on it slightly, but I think genuinely, in my opinion, in my mind, I think them having some kind of in-house arcade machine, which is some kind of streaming ability and can connect online, I think would play to all of the strengths that the Sega have. It would also be very big in the Japanese market, and I think it would also be quite industry shattering in terms of the fact it would be many things that we talked about, streaming services. It would be sort of Sega to their strengths. I think that kind of thing would probably be quite an interesting bit.
When you say that, are you thinking like an actual physical cab, almost like is it like One Up who make the kind of
exactly
right?
I mean the cost of it, I think having the way that the Japanese market has, from what I've seen, I'm not an expert on the Japanese market, but what's changed is that the arcades have become slightly less big as they were. And I think there is a lot more about staying at home, especially at the current time. I think having some kind of arcade ability at home on some kind of streaming platform or some kind of ability to sort of have different games playing on this and on multiplayer, it's the only thing I can think of which would play to their strengths. And I think that's the thing which people don't talk about much when they talk about Sega. They don't talk about the strengths. They talk about what is their own vested interest in Sega. I mean, we love Dreamcast, so therefore we're always going to say Dreamcast 2. Well, we don't, because we don't do that. But you know what I mean, that kind of thing. I think no matter what you like, I think all the people who love Saturn are sort of saying, it's a successor to Saturn or Saturn Mini. I mean, we're all vested interest in something, or we want Microsoft or Sony to do it. We've got to look at the bigger picture, which is Sega's strengths in Japan, which is not necessarily the same as what we think they are. So, I mean, some kind of ability to have every single arcade game Sega developed on some kind of in-house arcade machine, I think would be pretty big deal if they managed to do it well.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, well, especially a friend of mine lived in Japan about end of 2003 into about 2005, and he was telling me about like networked arcades nights that he would go to then. So he would play the Sega World Club Championship Football, which is, imagine if Ultimate Team had real physical cards and you would lay them out on a grid and it would put the real players in and you could move the formations around. And he'd play in tournaments where he would be playing that in the city he was in, and there'd be 8 other slots there, or 7 other slots, and they would play against people from the other arcades around as they said, around the UK, around Japan. And it's one of those things you think about. Quite a lot of people in the UK hadn't even experienced something like Xbox Live or online gaming on the PC by then, and thinking about network arcades and stuff like that is incredible. That would be really cool if it was that. If we were to receive it in some form, I would love that. Lewis, have you got something outlandish that you would like it to be?
Panzer Dragoon Saga HD. That's what I want.
I like it.
And what was the other thing? Shit. Sorry. Cut that. Yeah, Panzer Dragoon Saga HD, new Jet Set radio. Not industry shattering though.
Sonic Adventure 3.
It would shatter my world. How about that? Yeah, Sonic Adventure 3.
Yes, please. I'll take that.
Let's cut to Mark then. Mark, what were you going to throw in with there before
I was just going to say, I mean, that, don't get me wrong, I don't think that this is likely, and I certainly don't think that Sega would be announcing this via a journalist at a magazine kind of thing. But I mean, we actually could be looking at this the opposite way around. This could be Sega acquiring another company, obviously not a Microsoft or anything like that, but certainly I know Capcom was up for sale up until Monster Hunter World tore the world down. Konami has been rumored to be up for sale. This could be Sega merging with something like that, or some other upscale business. I mean, because that would suddenly create a absolute powerhouse of a business. If you had all the Capcom franchises, all the Sega franchises put together, I mean, that would suddenly be one of the biggest, if not the biggest outside of Nintendo in Japan.
I think Mark's probably got the best. I think Mark's probably had the best shout of all. I think I think Capcom, Konami, and Sega combined. I mean, that is the kind of force that probably could launch a console in the next generation. That's a pretty huge deal. I mean, that pretty much every major Japanese company apart from Sony all forming together. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Especially it was within the last year we've had the devices from Capcom and SNK. The Capcom one, I think you could connect to an online store via the arcade stick, didn't you? I've never actually seen one or played on one. And then SNK had a similar type of thing where you needed to have some kind of network ability, and the games were already on there, but they would unlock over a series of time. It was a controller that was standalone with the SNK games on. All works. I think it works on the Switch. So maybe we'll put some posts out about what they are. But yeah, so if it was something like that those kind of what I would call like the 90s arcade crowd would put together, that would be great. I would give up my Game Gear TV tuner idea for that idea, for sure. So,
yeah.
Has anyone got any final thoughts or anything that they want to put in before we begin to get a bit of a wrap up?
I think Mark's idea is probably, like Mike says, probably the most feasible. Them to collaborate or purchase a company. I mean, when they bought Atlas, that was quite a big deal. It wasn't maybe a bigger deal in the wider gaming sphere, because, like you say, Kev, like your brother probably couldn't even name an Atlas game, and that's quite a lot of gamers. So for them to buy something even bigger than Atlas, say a Capcom or Konami or something, that would be quite. I mean, all the IPs they'd acquire through that as well.
Yeah. So just to wrap up, what would be the most disappointing thing that it could be? So if we start with Mike, we'll go Mike, Mark, Lewis.
A new Sega console would be the most disappointing because it would be
the actual Dreamcast 2 would be the most disappointing.
Yeah, because it wouldn't be as good as we imagine it would be. I mean, it's not the same company. It's not Sega of the 1990s.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pipe dream. We all love Sega. I mean, we love Sega, but we have to be realistic. It's not feasible to expect Sega to go back on their own into the console market. I mean, as Marcus said, that idea about sort of some kind of giant gaming union with other companies would be amazing, and that could potentially be the next generation. But I mean, companies don't just sort of have an idea in their head and go, right, I'm going to make a console, and then like 2 weeks later it's suddenly announced. I think some people on the internet seem to think that's how gaming works. You sort of have an idea and the company can just do it.
Especially with the consoles that are coming out, Xbox, PS5. People have been speculating about their specs and their builds for well over 7-8 months because they've been noticing like contracts that they've been making or manufacturers they've been aligning with, or like if you do build a PC that's next gen, you'll find them talking about this is going to be the equivalent of the PS5 or the next. This is the processing that this is going to have. This is the SSDs.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
I think it's much more likely that Sega would have something like, if we're talking about context of what could happen, I think the chances of Sega being any sort of hardware is very unlikely and be very disappointing. But I think it's more likely that something like Epic Store or Steam doing some kind of deal with Sega would actually be, which we haven't talked about actually. One of those PC markets actually having some kind of ability to have the entire Sega library online. That kind of thing is probably more likely. But no, hardware, I think if they announced the hardware, it would be, unless they've really done this for several years now and it is with like a Chinese company or something, it would be such a disappointment because I think it wouldn't live up to our dreams, and it wouldn't be the same sort of thing. There's not the space, I don't think, within the industry to have quite the same Sega experience as it used to be. You know what I mean? Yeah. Is it enough mainstream? Probably not.
So, Matt, what would be your most disappointing announcement?
Mine would be if it is some kind of streaming service. Again, like I'm just a console gamer largely. I do play some games on PC, but it's not my preferred format. And it just, that would be like less than nothing for me. It'd just be like, okay, that's just something I'm never going to bother even looking at. And I've got probably most of the games which they chuck up there anyway. That would be just completely pointless. But again, I can't see how that would shatter the industry. But again, we are presuming that this guy's not a complete like overhyped Peter Molyneux-esque. Like just bullshitter. So I
feel a bit sorry for bringing up Peter now. He's never going to live that down, is he?
No.
Been like 25 years or something, nearly. Right, Lewis. Let's hear what would break your heart.
Yeah, I suppose I think no matter what happens, we're maybe we'll be all right because I feel like we're not getting our hopes up. We're quite cynical and skeptical about the whole thing, but I feel like there's a lot of hearts that are going to be broken and a lot of disappointment for a lot of the speculation I've been seeing online. But I think just something not necessarily wouldn't disappoint me, but I'd be a little bit like, in a previous episode of the Dream Pod where we speculated what if the Dreamcast won, I actually kind of concluded at the end, after a while of my brain whirring, that actually I don't even mind Sega being a console manufacturer. I just really love their games, and so all I ever wanted was Sega to do good third-party games, and obviously, as we all know, they kind of didn't really give us much of those IPs we've all wanted for many years. So if they were to go exclusive, I think that would be one of my sort of things I wouldn't like, because I love the idea that, they could put a game on the Switch or on the PS4 or the Xbox, and there's all that choice for everyone to be able to play their games. The idea of them being bought out and just having all their games on one console, I think, would be a bit disappointing, because, everyone should be able to play these games who have been wanting a new jet set radio or something for so long. It'd be a bit of a shame for them to limit half of their fan base. So yeah,
which is what happened with Choo Choo Rocket, isn't it? In an extent,
yeah.
A huge fan of that. I've still never played the new one.
That's true. Don't
have access to it. So okay. With me, if it's anything involving Altered Beast, or if it's anything involving like just some like generic, there's a new Sonic movie or Sonic the Hedgehog 7 or wherever we're up to is coming out, that would be disappointing for me, because not that I don't like Sonic. He's fine. Some of my best friends are Sonic fans. I'd just be a bit underwhelmed. It'd be very par for the course that we've seen before. So that would be it for me. So
like another classic collection or something.
Classic collection, yeah.
I know. If it's another announcement of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on a classic compilation, I will literally disconnect the internet.
To the planet, not just at your own house, for everyone.
The amount of times that they've had this massive Sega news, it's gone, you can play Sonic 2 again. I've been playing Sonic 2 for the last 25 bloody years.
On that note, there's actually a video I saw like recommended to me on YouTube, like how many consoles and ways can you play Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's like this massive list of all these ways you can play it.
It's getting to Tetris levels.
Yeah.
or Doom levels.
Or Doom, yeah.
There we go. Right. Thank you to everyone who's joined us in whatever format we've joined you in. Hopefully we'll be able to look back on our completely accurate predictions after the time in the place. Or if not, we'll be able to just look back and think, well, we wasted 40 minutes of our lives there. But then what else would we really be doing with this time? So please, please, please feel free to put your own outrageous, outlandish comments in whatever format you're on, be it YouTube, Twitter, podcast feed, wherever. And please, 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 we'd love to see what you are hoping it would be. And then hopefully we will see you after the announcement. So thanks, guys, and we'll see you in the future.
This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.